are here with Andy Proctor
Hey.
from Utah. So exciting. Welcome to FriYAYs with Kyla and Andy today. So Andy is the founder of Happy Life Online School, where he's got like tons of courses, so many interesting courses on happiness, which he created himself and he researched himself. He is the #1 positive psychology broadcaster on Periscope. What? And he has a small town of like 100,000 followers. That's so amazing. I'm so excited. Welcome, Andy, and thank you so much for joining us live from Utah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I love this stuff.
Yay! So we'll just jump in with the questions.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. So the first question is, so you introduce yourself on your More Happy Life website as if sunshine, unicorns, and scientists had a baby. I love that. Could you like tell us more about that? Like how that came to you, what that means to you, and anything else you'd like to share? Like how creative and amazing is that?
Okay, so I think there's like the ivory tower of academia, right? And there's so much amazing research that goes on and so much science out there that is published in these academic journals, but then nobody reads it. And so I love to really just kind of give life to this like research, right? And I love the science. I love the nerdiness of it, but I love translating it. And so I think it's super fun to, sunshine and unicorns. I mean, so sunshine, I just, obviously I'm like super happy and kind of positive person in general. And then unicorns, I'm also kind of a Harry Potter fan. So I like the magical scene. I was Newt Scamander for Halloween, and I definitely won like all of the contests, the costume contests. So maybe one of these times I'll dress up as Newt Scamander for a broadcast. Anyway, but that's kind of how it came about. I was just thinking about how can I, really be me in my introduction. And really it's, like sunshine, unicorns, and scientists. And, that's my DNA right there. So.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Who knew you were a Harry Potter fan? That's awesome.
Yeah,
And like
I'm
a little bit of nerd. Yeah, a little bit of nerd, a little bit of like creativity, a little bit of like uniqueness. And I love that you just own that. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my second question is, we're gonna just go like deep really quickly.
Love it.
So you celebrated your 5-year anniversary with your wife. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so you posted on Facebook something that just was so thoughtful and authentic and genuine and amazing. So you mentioned that you and your wife had gone away and like away from technology and just were together. And you came out of that, with some actionable goals for your relationship. But beyond that, you talked about how you wanted to work on not fixing what was broken, but building a shared meaning together. And I think it's just so refreshing in this climate of, like #MeToo and all of this stuff, that to see someone like you, this just positive male role model, speaking about a relationship in this kind of positive manner and having these happy, actionable items. You're not just working on happiness, but you're living your happiness creed within your own personal relationship. Just love to hear more about that.
Thank you. So, wow. Like, thank you. I appreciate that. It really means a lot to me because I think the number one predictor of our happiness is our close relationships, you know? And so for me, I think it's really, yeah, like it was hard. It was hard to go off social media. I mean, like you know, I'm a social media guy and I'm a technology guy. I mean, I live with my phone. I have an Apple Watch. Like I'm just kind of, you know, like I'm in it. And that's what I, you know, do for my kind of day job as well. So it's like, I mean, it's literally my job. So to step away was tricky. And I felt like literal, almost like withdrawals, you know, with the first few days, I was just like, ah, and, but yeah, because I actually had the chance to just, it's almost like breathing, you know, like I breathed, outside of the social media world and technology smartphone world. I was able to really clear my mind and my soul, together with my wife, and we just were present together. And I think that's a powerful thing to do, um, for a couple, and even just for yourself, because it really takes you to this different place where you can think, okay, this isn't for, you know, I mean, we took our traditional anniversary picture, and it's kind of, it's also pretty nerdy, but we just, you know, it's like, we call it Inception anniversary.
That's amazing.
And we hold pictures of ourselves, holding pictures of ourselves all the way back to our marriage day. Anyways, and so I was just like dying because I wanted to post that picture on social media. But I thought about it and I'm like, it's not about the picture. It's not about the post. It's about us. And so that's when really I started thinking, you know, what can we do? Like how can we reapproach social media? How can we make deliberate decisions? And one of the big ones that we made was, like, we replaced our TV with a piano. And I mean, we still watch movies. Like it's not like we're not gonna like watch movies anymore or watch, you know, we don't really watch TV. We just like watching movies, like Harry Potter. And we literally watch Harry Potter so much. Anyways,
That's awesome.
but but yeah, like we decided to be deliberate in using our time for creation rather than consumption. And like we totally are still gonna go to like Ant-Man and the Wasp and like, you know, go to these movies and stuff. Like we love movies, but like, and love being entertained. But we thought, okay, how can we tweak our environment? Because I think like it's our environments, our little things in our environment that make a huge difference in the internal, which then if we can empower ourselves internally, that we then can make even more external tweaks. And and it becomes this kind of upward spiral of health and happiness. And so we just saw these things really affecting us. And I was like, man, my wife is an amazing pianist and she never plays. So I was like, why don't we have a piano in our house? And I thought, well, it's because we don't have any room. And I was like, okay, then we're going to just get rid of our TV. So we did. And that's been already just life-changing.
Wow.
So yeah, and like creating these like shared meaning, these goals that create shared meaning, that build meaning within our relationship. But it wasn't until we really stepped away from the constant pull, because there's this cognitive pull, you know. I mean, it's literally, it's dopamine, in our head. And so yeah, that's kind of what for us, like we decided to, you know, get the piano. We decided that we're gonna write a book together.
So amazing.
Yeah. And we decided, because like she has bipolar and I've had anxiety, and so it's like we've got to talk about this stuff. Like we got to help people out there, and we're not just gonna suffer from it. We're gonna make it into something meaningful, and you know, create the beauty from the madness. So that's, just a couple of things that we decided to do together. We're also going to go get certified in positive psychology together.
That's amazing.
So it's like these big things out of this one week of taking a break. I was like almost get emotional about it, because it's like, I just get so like, I don't know, I just get like so excited, because like a lot of times in relationships, it's so easy, right? To just like, you come home and you're like, hey, like, get the laundry done, pay the bills, check the mail. Did you get that thing? Hey, like, how are we doing on these bills? And hey, can you do the dishes? And I got dinner. And it's just this all task mastering. And then if you do that, if you don't like keep the fun and like have these approach goals that you're excited about working towards together, it's like, yeah, it's just not the same. You don't want to be with that person. And so we wanted to build things that made us want to be together. So, but yeah, I think it's really important. And I think men, to kind of talk about what you're saying with that, I think men have the capacity to do it. And I mean, a lot of times I think of myself like, oh, I'm just like total outlier. No other guys want to like just get together and like chat, like, or just, or talk about our feelings or whatever. But like, I think there's more men that actually would do that if they felt like it was okay to do, or if they got an invitation from another guy, who was really confident about it. So, it's just, I think the more men who talk about it, I think there's just as many men who want to talk about their emotions and who feel emotions as there are women who did the hashtag Me Too. I mean, truly, it's huge. It's a big deal, I think. So I'd love to help empower them. I don't know how yet, but I would love to do that. So, but thank you. So thank you for asking about that. And I think it's a really important thing that we need to talk about. And I also am really grateful that you helped me talk about my relationship with Stacy, because I love it. So
That's amazing. And thank you, Andy, for just sharing so deeply and unapologetically and sincerely and authentically and just being yourself. And I think, your story and your being you can inspire so many men out there, the men that you speak of. And I absolutely agree that that there are as many men out there as there are women in the hashtag Me Too movement. And
absolutely.
I love everything that you're about. And if there's anything I can do to help with that, would love to, of course. And hopefully we can just get that message out there, with this co-interview thingy. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the last question is about, you have created all these amazing courses around happiness, and one of the courses that you created is about how to deal with negative people. And this is a question that comes up so much with my clients and people at my workshops, and we just love to hear your thoughts around this and how to navigate around this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal. It's tough because, like, I started noticing it with myself. And this is kind of why I thought, man, I really have to talk about this, because I mean, I studied happiness. I read all these happiness books, all these books on my shelf over here, like full of happiness books about the science of happiness, positive psychology, and human flourishing. And no matter how much I studied and even would try to implement these things, I could control myself and the choices that I made. But then I would find myself drained. after being around certain people, and specifically certain people that I couldn't avoid being around. And so I thought, wow, this is a big deal. Like, I've got to talk about this. And because I always think, okay, how am I going to learn how to do this? And so I start thinking, how can I teach it? Because the best way to learn something is by teaching it.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, okay, I gotta create a course about this. And the first thing was I was inspired by Michelle Gielan, who she's Sean Aker's, she's married to Sean Aker, who's also a happiness activist. And she went to the MAP program, positive psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania. And she was a broadcaster who, I think she worked for like CBS or NBC or one of the big networks. Was an anchor, and she was constantly reporting on all the negative stuff. You know, I mean, because that's what a lot of the news is. and it was affecting her health, and she just thought, I just can't do this anymore. And so she ended up quitting her job, her dream job, right? As an anchor, that's like kind of the dream, to be in that industry, to get to that point. And she started to become a positive psychologist. And so she started talking about how can we deal with these negative, because everyone is broadcasting, right? Everyone is a broadcaster, whether you're broadcasting to your partner that you live with, your roommate, your coworkers, your family, or to 100,000 followers. Like, everyone is broadcasting. And so there's a lot of people who are broadcasting negative. I mean, we all have negativity biases, you know. That's just a part of our evolution that we have to work on, but it can become really, really just very very pungent negativity and gratuitous negativity that is really hard to deal with. And there's certain people who you just have, it's tough. So I guess I'm preaching to the choir here. I don't have to sell the fact that there are negative people out there that we have to deal with. Especially if you're trying to increase and improve your own happiness and having your own kind of happiness project going on. So in your own life. So like, I think, so if you can try to avoid being around them as much as possible. If there's a way to do that. And I heard from somebody a ratio, and I think some people don't like this, but it has really helped me. And it's kind of like the 33% rule. So be around the people who really inspire you and lift you and boost you and just drive your dreams at least 33% of the time. And whether that's, maybe you can't be with them in person, right? But listen to their TED Talk or read their book, or listen to their podcasts or take their course online or whatever it is. Be inspired by that person at least 33% of the time. And then 33% of the time, you're going to be around people who are kind of in the neutral area, right? They're just kind of, they're not negative, they're not really positive, they're just there. And that's great, and hopefully you can be there to like inspire them too. And then there's that 33% that you can't necessarily avoid, where there's people who may be really negative, or really people who are negative. It's because they're in pain, but they don't know how to talk about it, and so they've just kind of learned these patterns of negativity that they just kind of cope with. And so I think it's really focusing on that kind of upper 33% of inspiration and lifting for yourself that can really help to boost you during the lower 33%, to be able to even lift them if you can. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes some people just don't really care, and they're just negative, and there's not really anything you can do about it. But and in those cases, really, one of the things that Michelle Gielan actually talks about in her book is to have these kind of what she calls strategic retreats, where, and it's not like a retreat where you go off to a beach or whatever, but it's it's a retreat. You know, you are with that person, and then strategically you go to recharge yourself. I talk in one of my other courses, I actually talk about how to build what I call a positivity playlist. And
Cool.
yeah, there's like 10 positive emotions that have been really heavily researched by Barbara Friedrichsen and others, and like they're like superpowers. We all can experience them, and we can bring them to mind very, very quickly and very easily. And so, but we have to have cues to be able to do that. So I like to call it like it's like a mixtape of positivity, right? A positivity playlist that you're constantly updating with whatever makes you feel those emotions. And when you're in that strategic retreat, you go and you remind yourself of those things. Things like, what are you interested in? What are things that drive you? What is your purpose? What makes you excited? What brings you serenity? What makes you proud of yourself? You know, what makes you laugh? And even also, what do you love? What brings that sense of awe? So those are just a couple of those positive emotions.
Cool.
You know, when was the last time you experienced one of those emotions, and what can you do to kind of either bring that to your mind, or even do one of the things that help you kind of get to that emotion again. And it really, literally, you can like feel it in your body when you do that. So when you're around those negative people, you know, it can really suck you dry of those emotions, but then don't let that keep you from, you know, allowing yourself to feel those as well. So go, even if, I mean, literally, if you have to say like, I got to go to the bathroom or whatever, right? And you go to the bathroom and you just literally, like, even if you have to just be in that stall and like think for a minute and like bring those memories to mind, you know, it's so important. And I tried to like make that as easy as possible of how to build that kind of positivity playlist in one of those courses as well, that I have on the site. But I just think it's so important to have these little tools that can help us kind of reset, and kind of take that breath. It's kind of like, I think of it as like emotional leaven, or like yeast, right? Like, so like you're baking a piece of bread every single day with your emotions in your mind. And so like you could go throughout your whole day and you could have the flour and the salt and the whatever else you put in your bread, water and oil or butter or whatever. And if you don't put in the yeast, it's not going to rise, and you're not going to, the loaf of bread's not going to be the same. So taking literally 30 minutes, and you could even break that up. It could be like 5 minutes here and there throughout the day, is like the yeast of your emotional health. Like it's going to make your entire day rise. Like it really will. So those are a couple of things I think that have really helped me to deal with those negative people, because you can't change them. It's just you can't change them, but you can control your own self. So sometimes you have to retreat to do that.
That's amazing. I love the positivity playlist and the 33% and the using the yeast and to rise. And also just I do this too, like figuring out creative ways to like elevate not just that negative person, but myself and others at the same time. Because I think that's really like, you know, what you were saying about how those people are just, you know, they're really hurt, and there's something deep within that hasn't, you know, that they haven't worked on. Or, I mean, I think all of us, right, to a certain degree.
Sure. Yeah,
nobody's perfect. We're imperfect humans. But yeah, I recently learned in my happiness course that I'm taking that the positive to negative ratio of news stories is like, so for every one positive news story, there's 38 negative.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, but that's crazy. I'm like, write that down. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's like
38 to 1.
38 to 1.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know, right? Like who would have thought?
That's why I don't watch the news.
Yeah, I also stay
I mean, I
away.
tell people if they want to, if they want to like look at the problems of the world, they go watch the news, and it'll definitely keep you informed about the problems of the world. If you want to see how people are actually solving the problems, go watch TED Talks.
Yeah. It's called the Losado ratio, in case
Oh yeah,
you want to
Losada.
know.
Okay, interesting. Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, thank you for. I love those questions. That was so thoughtful and very poignant too. So thank
You.
you. That means a lot.
So do you have questions that you want to ask me?
I would love to ask you some questions, actually. Yeah. So this is something that I actually get a lot when I talk about happiness, and I'm constantly talking about happiness, the science of happiness. So people ask me this, and I'd like to ask it to you as well, because I feel like we're in the same vein, right? So why happiness? Why start with happiness? And like, why is this so important in like in the grand scheme of things? Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, happiness is overrated, or like, isn't like, I don't know. I think a lot of people just underestimate happiness. So I really want to know from you, like, what is it that you see in that?
Yeah, I love that question. That's a great question. I also get that a lot. And what I would say and what I tell people is that I actually didn't choose happiness, which I know I should, like now that I've done the research. But happiness actually chose me. And
Wow.
yeah, and so as we were talking
I
earlier,
love that.
in 2014, I was asked to inspire university students in Mexico to give back to their communities in the form of volunteering.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't really know. I mean, it was very loosely. I loosely knew like, hey, we should all be happy, and like happiness is good, and
Right.
blah blah blah. But I didn't really. I was still very much on the tip of the iceberg, if you will, on happiness.
Totally.
And so for that workshop, I thought I could either do a really boring PowerPoint presentation. We've talked about like boring lectures, those are like a no-go. Or I could give a really fun interactive workshop and do a bunch of research and figure out what is really behind giving back. And so of course I did the latter, and I found that all roads led to happiness, right? We know that if we give back to others, we become happier. It's that sense of the happiness hormones that come to us when we give back, endorphins. So I just created that, and the more I delved into happiness, the more I realized where you are and these other happiness experts, like, okay, holy cow, like this is a thing. This is actually a thing, and we need to like get into it more, and it's really, really important. And of course, like all of Sean Aker's work on happiness in terms of, um, before we want to be successful, we need to be happy, not the other way around. And that was just such a game changer for me.
Yeah.
So happiness really found me.
I love that. That's really cool. That's so powerful. It's like calling, it's like really is your calling. I'm really so passionate about helping people to like figure out what their kind of life mission is, and so I love it when I can find somebody who like they just know it, like you, and I can see that, I can feel it in you, like you totally just like it's in there,
Oh, thank
So,
you. I feel the same about you, so.
Yeah, we are in the same tribe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I have another question for you. So, kind of going along the same lines of that, because you say this is your calling, like happiness found you. So I can think of for me a few times where it was kind of like the beauty from the madness, and like this kind of moment where I just realized, wow, like this is it. And like I have that kind of moment for me, and I can even think of like specific people who really were, you know, a part of that, and who inspired that. So like I would love to know like who were those people for you, or who was that person, and like tell me a little bit about that moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. It's such a great and poignant question because as we've talked about, you know, happiness is all about social relationships and also like a predictor of longevity. So, I would say the first person is my husband.
Mm,
Um, but again, it wasn't you know, it wasn't like it all kind of lined up. It was just the road of life, and you know, which isn't straight, it's like curvy,
right.
as we know.
Yeah. Right.
And I, you know, similarly to you, I have this entire, I can show you, I have, here's my like book,
Yeah.
all like happiness books, and Martin Seligman, and you know, Tal Ben Shahar, all of whom were at the World Happiness Summits in
Right.
March. It's so amazing to actually see them
So
live.
cool.
Um, so I just started doing, you know, for my workshops, and then just for my own personal life, I just started getting into happiness research. And one night, I was reading Martin Seligman, Flourish, and I'm like,
Mm,
I'm a little bit of a skeptic. I'd have to just throw that out there. So I was reading, and I'm, you know, all the stuff like how, you know, if you're more positive, you're more healthy, and if you're more positive, you're more successful, and all this stuff. And I'm like,
right.
yeah, whatever, whatever. And then so I'm reading in bed, and I have this epiphany where I look over at my husband, and I'm like, oh my God, my husband is the living, breathing example of this, because he has like overcome so much in his life, but he's like super positive all the time. Like,
Wow.
oh my God. So that was like the first moment. And then the second is a
Wow.
little
I
bit
love
deeper and a little bit heavier. Um,
that. Mm,
my mom was diagnosed with early onset dementia last
mm,
year. And that just sent me into this like huge tailspin of depression.
mm.
Um, and I took the year out. I left my job as a professor. I took the year out as a pause. I worked through a lot of emotions. I just went inward and inward and inward. I became a certified life coach. I finished the book that I had been working on. I created a pop-up cafe in my apartment, serving no salt, no sugar, healthy, nourishing, happy meals for people. Um, and I hired a life coach who then helped me, you
Wow.
know, like you're talking about, like aligning people with their goals and
Yeah.
vision and what they're supposed to do. And so it was just this huge, deeper meaning of happiness, and wanting my family to be happy, and wanting my mom to be happy. And of course, most importantly, um, creating that balance of, you know, it's not that I have to be happy all the time as a happiness coach,
Yeah.
but happiness is more not the happiness is not the absence of negative emotions, but the acceptance of them.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
wrapping my head around that, and not being ashamed or embarrassed that as a global happiness coach, it's okay for me to accept my negative emotions and not hide
Mm,
from social media, um, and not be ashamed that I'm going through all of this stuff and depression.
wow.
And then the tip of the iceberg. So, you know, Mo Gadot, I saw you had a picture of
Yeah.
with Mo from World Happiness Summit. So those of you who don't know Mo Gadot, he lost his son in a routine appendicitis when he was 19, wrote this book called Solve for Happy. He spoke at the World Happiness Summit, and recently he's left his job at Google to work on 1 billion people happy. like just this, and he's like the nicest, most humble person, like
Yeah.
ever. So I read his book during this year out, Solve for Happy. And I'm sure you know about how he talks about the eraser test.
Mm.
How, so the eraser test basically is if there's like some negative thing in your past or something that's happened to you that's seemingly negative, would you erase it? And then if so, what are the consequences? Because we always assume, let's erase like the negative things and everything will be perfect and sparkly and happy. When in truth, that's not really what happens. So I thought about my mom's dementia immediately, like erasing that. But then I was like, oh my God, but if I erased that, I would have never become a life coach. I would never started my own business. I would have never worked on myself. My sister and I would have never worked on our relationship, which we've become so much closer. My family and I, we would have never worked on our relationship with each other to support my mom. And then my mom herself, like she used to carry around this huge bag. Like I kind of liken it to like not just physical baggage, but emotional baggage. Now she leaves the house with nothing. She used to hold on to grudges. Now she can't remember them, and that's so much healthier for her. And she is like so much more grateful. Like she always, every phone call I have with her was like, I'm so grateful that you're my daughter. I'm so grateful that you called. There are these like positive emotions that stick with her because of her short-term memory loss. And like, it just is amazing. I could go on and on.
Wow.
Suffice to say, I wouldn't erase it. And it just made this happiness journey so much deeper. And yeah, I don't know.
That's really, really powerful. And wow, that's amazing. That's just hits home in like so many areas for me as well. And I mean, I think I've struggled with that same thing of like, well, how do I how do I be human and be a happiness expert?
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, wait, aren't you a happiness expert? Or shouldn't you be happy? And that's a huge fallacy. And I love how you talked about that. I love that. And wow, man, with your husband and your mom, like that's just life changing. That's seriously it's those relationships, you know, that are the ones that like make all the difference. And it's like it doesn't matter how many followers you have on social media. It doesn't matter how many, like it's those ones, you know. That's really what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's this one, like how we're connecting. You're in Utah.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's like nighttime in Utah, even though it looks like it's daytime.
Yeah.
Morning
Right.
in Korea. It's already Friday over here. It's Thursday night over where you are, and we're just talking about life in a very open, authentic, sincere, just unfiltered. Like there's no filter. I'm not going to take a perfect selfie. I'm not going to filter my, stuff like my lines on my feet or whatever. I don't even know. There's a lot to do that. I don't even know how to do it. But this is what it is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's like, no, I like posted about this a week or couple of weeks ago about how like if you're feeling lonely, like you're never truly alone, like if you're feeling lonely, I think maybe you just need to find your tribe. And like it's like you are totally in my tribe, like, and I'm like I love like this is a powerful tribe that we are in. And it's really important, I think, that we stay close and that we find even more in that tribe, and we like lift each other up, like the rising tide, right, lifts all ships. Right. And so I just, I love that. So man, I'm like so thankful. I'm so thankful that like you found like that we found each other, you know, that happiness found you, and that, like, you know, here we are.
Yeah, and we have to thank our brother, our fellow tribe brother,
Yeah, James.
with us, and is just as much a part of this tribe and as amazing. And yeah, I just feel so grateful that we got to connect and that
Yeah,
we get to. I mean, it. You know, one of the beauties about doing what you love and following your purpose and your passion and your core values, and you know what we've talked about, and what you love helping people do, is that when you start doing that, not just in your personal life, you know, like what you were doing with Stacy, your wife, um, but that can also inspire people in your work life, right? Because the boundary, if we can even call it, is not even a boundary. It's just this like
totally.
fluidity, and you then inspire, you know, you kind of re-inspire yourself. And you know, like what we were talking about earlier, like
Yeah,
just talking about and hearing about each other's lives and each other's stories, you know, we're re-inspired, we're reinvigorated, we're re-energized to get back out there and you know, not fight, but
absolutely.
you know, like challenge ourselves with those negative
Yeah,
people or those negative naysayers or whatever.
right.
um, and you're just that much more elevated. Um,
No, absolutely. No, I totally agree, and I think we have to remind ourselves of that too, because there is a real ripple effect that happens. And even if you have no idea, even if you're just like, oh my gosh, this person always drags me down, like you are also dragging them up, even if you don't realize it. And
I love that.
you may have an effect not just on them, but like on their wife's neighbors, like taxi driver.
Yep.
uh, it's real. It's a real ripple effect. So
Yeah, love it.
here
Well,
we are making a ripple.
yeah, from Korea to Utah. Woo! In the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah.
Well, so awesome to connect, Andy.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for your time, and
Absolutely.
looking forward to collaborate with you again soon, for sure.
Yes, please. Let's do it. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Okay, have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.